How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting and welcome to ReWrite, where we are in the Terra. You know, obviously, it keeps teasing me with false promises of choices, but like, I keep having to remind myself this is fate-led, essentially. Like, we don't get choices. In fact, it almost feels like that's what happened, is that we gave up. Not just like, you know, not just, oh, we're out of a simulation in a real world now kind of thing, but it's also this idea that, like, Kotarou had to sacrifice, essentially, his will, because in order to make things play out the way they need to, he, like, kind of inserted himself into the main, like, the main script, you could almost say. Remember the scroll of fate? And by doing so, he locked himself into some kind of path. Maybe that's why Kagari, like, had that look of pity for him, because by intervening, he opened up a door. The door needed to be open, but in doing so, he kind of took his own agency out of the equation. That's kind of what the interpretation seems to be for me, or at least so far. We'll probably get some actual revelations about it in the future, but for now, we're just kind of setting the stage. We're doing the prelude, essentially, all the crazy stuff that led up to whatever the injury is that we know about, at least tiny bits of. And it really feels like we had flashbacks in the other routes, and it's looking like it's going to culminate in Akane going missing, getting lost in the forest, him trying to save her, and something happening that greatly injures him. And I'm guessing it's not going to be, oh, you like fell from a tree or something. It's going to be like, no, I think something attacks him. And yeah, we're going to have to see how that all plays out. But for now, we're starting here, and he's going on his first mission, official mission with Guardian. So, sure, it'll be fun. Oh, boy. And thank you for all your good comments. It's really nice having like people giving feedback about all of this. And someone was pointing out that a good thing to keep in mind is that Kotarou, while he's even being trained, like, this is the weakest we ever see him. And that's a really good... That was a really good way to put it. This is the weakest he is, and that's okay. But it does mean that he'll probably struggle on this mission quite a bit. Anyway, let's get started. 3 days later, I show up at the command center.
Yoshi, 来たな。
よろしくお願いします。
Well, I call it a command center, but there's nothing fancy here. Just a few people who look like staff moving in and out of the place. They're still bringing equipment in. Not all of it's been set up yet. I wonder if this is like the future antique store. Asaka also has a sandwich in one hand while looking through some documents. Everyone looks busy, or rather, they look like they're about to get busier still.
骨休みはできたか。
はい、万全です。それで、どうしたらいいんでしょう。
鍵の探索に協力してもらう。
鍵。
この町は外野勢力にとって大きな意味を持つ。
聖地なんでしたね。
鍵と呼ばれる存在がこの地に発生する可能性があるため、そう呼ばれるのだ。
So even now, it's all about just look for the key, look for the key.
その鍵というのは
魔物だ。だが、ただの魔物ではない。強大な力を秘めている。
そんなものがいたんですか。
極めて特殊な存在だ。めったに現れることはないが、ひとたび現れれば無視はできん。何としても討伐しなければならんし、現れずとも永続的な監視が必要になる。
Man, it would seem so ambiguous of a call. It's like, oh, so we need to look for the key. Even if it doesn't show up, we need to keep looking for it, because if we ever get to see it, it is absolutely mission critical. Which it is, totally get it, but especially for someone who's just new to the organization, it's gonna be like, okay.
そいつはどういうものなんです。
人の形をしているそうだ。ある種の魔物が持つ認識を撹乱する能力を備えているため、私もこの目にしたことはない。
認識を撹乱。目に入っても見えないとか。
それに近いものと考え、個人差があり、目視できてしまうものもいる。
I'm glad that they like bringing this up a bit, because again, even in the other routes, it's only kind of slightly hinted at that most people just can't even see her.
もし貴様がその資質を持っているなら、爆弾。
Like Grimace. I've got more than enough money as it is.
鍵は特殊な魔物だ。人間によって生み出されたものではない。 操る魔物使いはいない。鍵は大地から生まれてくる。
大地から、そんなことが。
星の化身ではないかという意見もあるくらいだからな。
で、そいつは何をしてかすんです？
救済。
救済。
彼らの言葉だ。人の滅びを意味する。
滅びって。
Yeah, yeah.
最後の審判などと同様、終末思想の一種だ。それを引き起こす鍵はガイア思想における救済の印とされている。鍵はガイア主義者たちを狂信的な行いに走らせる原因ともなる。
That's interesting. He's implying that the key is like the one that instituted the religious worship and the reverence for it, but that's not the case at all. The key is just the key. Reverence developed because of the key's power and what it represents. But like, I could see why Guardian would personify the key like this. If anything, it helps by giving the key a malicious will. Even in just like theory, it helps make it more justifiable to do what they do.
だからこそ鍵が発生したなら何としても確保あるいは排除しなければならん。
その言い方からすると、鍵ってのは何匹も生まれてくるものなんですか？
そうだ。頻繁ではないが、一度仕留めても数十年から数百年の単位でまた生まれてくる。
地球が魔物を生み出すなんて。
一度外国での討伐作戦に参加したことがある。
Okay. Yeah, I wonder, can we know details of the last time the key was intercepted?
私には鍵は見えないから作戦支援に徹するだけだったが。
Okay, so he was there. He was there when they took it out last. Interesting.
その時も鍵は人口密集地の近くに発生した。地元の者から神の森と呼ばれる聖なる土地に。
God's Forest. Is that a real place? Like, is it trying to reference an actual location? Or is it just kind of going with the flow?
風祭りが古代信仰のメッカだったことは知っているかね？
歴史の授業でそんなことを聞いた気がします。古墳とかも多いですよね。聖地ってそういうことですか？
Okay.
いかにも風祭りこそ古代から連綿と続く闘争の中心地なのだ。
One thing that's kind of funny about this is that we also know that this time that Kagari and like the key itself manifests from one of those power spots, those natural well springs of like life energy that the planet has, and they're likely, because it's like emitting this unseeable life energy, it's why they get forests. They grow a lot of plant life and a lot of just things grow there so easily. It makes it easy to manifest. And so in turn, you get these forests that are often tied to religious, like have religious ties because of like the power spot and likely the people who learned how to interact with it, like the druids, and they were able to perform miracles, and that builds the foundation for these various religions. And the religions ultimately started to revert, like kind of orbit around the key, because the druids, as they pass on knowledge of this key, and that in turn spawns all these different religions and sects. And now, because of the internet and the ability to communicate across the world, we now have a coalition of these types of organizations, Guardian and Gaia. Like, they're the culmination of the different philosophical viewpoints of the key, just globalized. Interesting. It's kind of a fun idea. Good grief. And considering, like, I might mention before, I've been gardening this year, and it's been really fun. One of the craziest parts about it for me was that I grew up gardening, but we lived in kind of like a deserty area, so it took a lot of effort. We had to water things a lot, and we had to work really hard just to get something to grow and to crop up. So I was shocked this year, because in growing up, a good example is tomato plants, right? We planted a tomato plant. We take care of it. We try and like give it the best opportunity it could, and it would grow, produce some tomatoes, and then the season would end, the plant would die. This year, because I live in a much more like vigorous growing area, a place that has frequent rainfall, and just like good soil, vivacious plant growth compared to what I grew up with. Lots of forests where I am. This is the first year I've seen multiple harvests from the same plants, and it's kind of thrown me for a loop because I just wasn't expecting that. So I got like a round of tomatoes is a great example, and they turned red. I started harvesting them. We started incorporating them into our cooking. It was really, really fun. Tasted delicious. Everything was fantastic. But now, the plant, after I took the tomatoes off, and it also happened with our zucchini and my peppers, because I grew some like various like hot peppers. So I love spicy things. They grew, they produced fruit. I harvested them. I figured we were done because that's how it was growing up in the desert-like area. No, they reflowered, and now they're regrowing even more fruit and vegetables. So, it's kind of amazing to me, and it makes me almost understand why if you grew up in an area where growing plants was a bit more of a struggle, where it was harder to grow your food, and then you move to a different location on the world, and suddenly not only was it easier, but also like it almost like you have to fight back nature here. Like growing up, weeds were a thing. Here, it's more like a battle. There's, especially with these vines and things that try to like choke out like everything that's growing in your garden. It's less of a it's not hard to grow your plants. It's hard to keep them from being like devastated by the more aggressive foliage, which is really weird. It's really cool, but it's an interesting perspective change to have grown up in these very different biomes.
驚いたかね。
とても。
RPG ゲームみたいだと思ったか。
Cat feels like it.
RPG ゲームって言い方が気になりますが、そうですね。
よってこの作戦には多くのスタッフが関わることになる。我々作戦部はその中核で実動部隊として動く。
はい。
不安か？
いきなりですから。
実戦経験のある日本人は少ない。
I think it's interesting. So Asaka is also saying like, hey, like he's trying to help Kotarou understand, like, look, even if you don't have incredible prowess and powers, we need people. We need people on the ground who understand the stakes, who understand what's going on, and we need them out there. If you can see the key, freaking amazing. Like, it's one of the most important things we could discover about you. If you couldn't see the key, we still need people out here who can observe, who can respond, who can do what they need to do. And maybe on the grand scheme of like fighting familiars, you're not an operational person who can go out and really function in like a kill team. But just having bodies in places who can provide information is so important for stuff like this. You know what? Asaka's got a really good point here that he doesn't have to be one of the best in order to be able to perform a very important task to the mission. I like that. I like his approach here, Asaka's. It could easily be overlooked by someone who is frustrated or really like impatient, but I think Asaka as a character is very, very good, doing a very good job of helping to try and like elevate and help and explain how important every role is, even if it's not flashy.
そういやそうですね。
時間さえあれば貴様にも経験を積ませたかったが、状況が差し迫っている。彼らも警戒している。この局面では下手に外国人の腕利きを連れてきてもマークされてしまうだろう。風祭りは貴様にとっては地元だが、同時に敵地と考えろ。しつこいようだが、昔の知り合いとの接触は回避しろ。親だろうと友人だろうと連絡を取ってはならん。
Oops. Might have already messed that part up. Oh crap, I've already met with Iko. But because I disguised myself, she shouldn't have recognized me. I'd better be more careful from now on, though.
働いてくれるな、天王寺。
はい、もちろん。
That seems like a critical flaw, though. If they really felt like it's really important that he not contact any of his old acquaintances, why on earth would they reassign him back to his own hometown? I understand Kazamatsuri itself is like an operational field where they're looking for the key, but you think if they're a worldwide operation, they would ship him somewhere else where he was a stranger and wouldn't have to worry about accidentally running into people whom he already knew. Do they not know that his family was heavily involved in the Martel group? I'm pretty sure that would have been pretty obvious. So why would they take that risk? It seems very odd.
作戦の開始まで時間がある。くれぐれも目立つような真似はするな。個人的に魔物を買ったりとかな。
勘弁してください。
It's now become an embarrassing stain in my career. Looks like the Earth Rescue Hunter is going to have to hang up his cape for now.
体調は万全に保て。通常の連絡にはこの携帯電話を使用したまえ。問題は？
いえ。
清水が明日3時よりブリーフィングをするそうだ。
わかりました。
なんだ？
鍵が人の形をしているって言いましたけど、どのくらいそれは人間なんですか？
無垢なるものの姿を取ることが多いという。
Interesting way to phrase that. An innocent form.
無垢？
擬態だとも考えられるな。人が恐ろしい狩人だとこの星も知っているのだろ
う。無垢って純真って意味だよな。それって子供とか赤ちゃんとか。
That would be terrifying.
そういうことだ。
Imagine a baby that wielded the power of a planet's might. Oh. My mission is either to capture or dispose of this being called the Key. The meaning of these words hits me like a fist straight to the heart. The next day, the command center is almost completely up and running. There are communication devices, bundles of cords strewn across the floor, and laptops opened like shells. Operators all working on their devices. It's a pretty impressive scene. The array of monitors on the wall in particular is awe-inspiring. Footage from hidden cameras set up all over town is being streamed in real time to show the monitors. They're used jointly with surveillance satellites. A super high-resolution image capture is shown on the desktop computer. To my surprise, I could even see the expressions of the person in the photo. They look like they're one of us. He's looking up at the sky and making a weird face. What a dork. As I slide my gaze down the hall, my eyes meet with a rather uncomfortable-looking duo in the corner as they sip coffee from cans. They're squatting like a couple of delinquents. Oh no. Can you go away? I didn't like you in the core game, and I like you a lot less now.
見せ物じゃないわよ。
知ってるよ。
つか、何そのスーツ。著しく似合ってねえんですけど。
やめたら、無意味な挑発。
お前たちも参加するのか？
今宮藩揃ったな。来てくれ。
From the desk deeper in the room, our instructor Shimuzu beckons us over. He pushes aside a stack of empty cup noodle containers that sit atop his table and spread out like a giant map of the city.
さて、ルーキー組の受け持ちだが。お前らは三人班か。
うっす。
Yeah, just, put that stake right back in our hearts, huh? Neither of the two seem startled. Maybe they already know and Nagai quit.
モニター要員だな。街でたむろする心ない遊ぶ若者になりきり、特定エリアの監視を行え。
俺と天王寺は地元なんすけど。
構わない。まだマークされてはいないはずだ。今宮と天王寺はそれだ。西九条は夜遊び顔ではあるようだが。
What is that supposed to mean? You look like a night person?
お前らの一人、昼間は市内の学校に通ってもらいたい。まあ西九条が適任だろ
う。本当ですか？やった！
Aww, there she is. That's a familiar face. And I love how she's just so excited about being able to go back to school.
あまり喜ぶな。一時的にだ。無事に仕事が終われば次の認知に行くことになる。
そうですよね。
Aww, she was so happy though. I can see why now she took up a role at the school. Like she probably just misses that whole experience. Nishikyojo has the wind taken out of her sails.
まだ吹っ切っていないのか。早くこの生き方になれろよ。
いえ、大丈夫です。
Asaka enters the room with a box of cream puffs.
よく働いてくれたなら、高校卒業資格くらいはそのうち配慮してやれるぞ。
Aww.
高校資格、欲しいです。
ならばプロの仕事をしてみせたまえ。
What a good way to motivate her. He's like, you know what? This is a good way to give her some, to make sure to get that wind back in her sails.
はい。
俺とかでももらえるんすか？
ああ。独断専行するなって意味だぞお前ら。
わかってますって。学歴ね。ま、一応もらっておくことにしますか。
I don't really care either way. I don't have any good memories of school.
今宮と天王寺は地元だったな。地区はどこだ？
He and I point on the map.
ならその辺りは外そう。この辺りはどうだ？
行ったことないっすね。
俺もです。
ではここだな。この地域からは森に入れるポイントがある。出入りする人間を監視しろ。
森に誰も入らないようにするんすか？
いざという時には動いてもらうが、基本は監視と報告だ。
Yeah, information gathering. It's far more critical.
それだけですか？
ルーキーなんだから欲張るな。後で専任のモニター要員から引き継ぎをさせる。細かいことはそいつに聞け。
うっす。
今のうちに現地も確認しておけ。
Alright. Right as we leave the room, Imamiya grumbles.
くっそ。重要度の低いエリアを割り当てやがった。
仕方ないよ。成績悪いんだから。
おめえは上機嫌だな。学校行けるからっすか？
悪い？
いや、いいけどな。どんなゴミ仕事でもこなしてやるよ。上、生きてえし。
Oh, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will.
独断専行は。
うるせえよ。真面目でも無能じゃ意味ねえだろ、おめえ。結果が全てなんだよ。
Superhumans generally think that way. But for me, it's not really the case. My poor ratings and ability makes me anxious. Sure, we need to do our crappy jobs they give us. And that's the only thing I agree with Imamiya on. God, the music always slaps.
三國くんじゃん。チュース。
Near the instructor, Mikuni's team shows up.
担当どこ？
偵察班。詳しくは言えないから。
森の中じゃん。当然って感じ。
そこまで言ってないって。
大抜擢なんだぞ、三國。
いや、もうありがたいですよ。本気で。
まあ敵の情勢を探るのがお前らの仕事だから戦闘にはならんだろうが、不満に思って突出するなよ。
それはないです。俺に限っては。
その言い方からして自信ありげなんだけど。
Laughs all around. Even Mia's fun little conversation sounds like it's echoing from somewhere far away. Gah, man, that's a mood. That's so... I absolutely know what that's like. Like, it's almost like an imposter syndrome type of issue, and it's something I definitely have experienced. It's where you feel like you're part of a group and you're part of an activity, but you don't feel like you're actually part of the activity. I don't think it's reality. I think it's a reflection of like just how you feel about the situation. And a lot of times, if you feel like you're not in control or like you're not sure if you belong, you feel just this disconnect. With each passing day, the command center grows more and more hectic, and the streets get more and more crowded. All Imamiya and I do is chat on the street. But there's also work.
俺も諜報班あたりに加えてくれたらな。
He grumbles to himself as he munches down his fourth bar of chocolate. Oh, good grief, dude.
足手まといになるだけでしょ。
Man. Their character design is pretty good. Pretty good. Meanwhile, Nishikujo is chomping down yet another 3 scoops of ice cream. What? You guys are gonna die. What is this diet? Everyone sure has an appetite. Same score goes for Asaka too. It's because we consume more calories than an average person. Aha. Boy, wouldn't that be nice. In comparison, I only eat about as much as a typical guy. Is this why I'm weak?
なあ、俺たち浮いてないか？
おめえらのせいだろ。
なんでだよ。
そのスーツだよ。街中でんな格好されてもな。
Imami is in streetwear, so it's weird to put the two of us together.
確かにこの3人は変ね。
おめえら2人とも俺に合わせろよ。街の悪ガキって設定だろ。西九条もどうせなら制服とかで来いよ。なんだよそのスーツ。
普段着がこれなんだもの。しょうがないでしょ。
Nice.
いいとこの嬢ちゃんはこれだから。せっかく可愛い制服あんだから見せて回るくらいのサービス精神を。
I don't like you, Imamiya. You are everything I hated about growing up. You were exactly the person whom I avoided at all costs.
殺されたいの？
Yeah, exactly. She will kill you. She will kill you. She's dead serious. Seems like Nishikujo is embarrassed when it comes to the school uniform. She'd look so cute walking around in it, though. I think so, anyway.
やってみろよ。俺の逃げ足なめんなよ。
逃げるんかい。
There's a reason why the three of us are just hanging around. As for why, it's to make sure that the locals don't get suspicious about why we're always loitering around here. There's still a few days left until the operation. We need to get them used to our presence here as much as we can. Kazamatsuri is enemy territory. Gaia's presence here is strong. Many of the city's residents and companies brought in, the people involved are all connected with Gaia. It's the Holy Land where the key will appear. We have to find the key in a place like this. Thankfully, Gaia's forces haven't seemed to notice our military actions yet. Most of them can be considered amateurs. This is where we especially trained superhuman has an advantage. On the other hand, Gaia's side of the information on the key is that many degrees more reliable. It's interesting. I wonder why has he never reported his involvement with the Martel group, specifically when he met Sakura. He probably obviously doesn't realize how involved she is in Gaia as like the holy woman, but he got the impression that she might know that he had powers. She kind of tipped her hand there. And he's never explained it. Maybe he's worried about how Guardian would respond if they found out that he'd had like personal contact with Sakura, because they probably know that she's like very involved. And maybe he's worried that drawing a connection like that would get him in trouble. But it's also just very strange because she even mentioned how she's like, oh, it looks like they haven't got to you yet. So it implies that she already knew he was superhuman, right? So maybe that's just how they operate. Because if you recall, I think it was Lucia's path. In Lucia's story, it might have happened in Shizuru's as well, but there was the whole like coordinated assault that Gaia did, like a preemptive strike, where they took out like almost half the operatives working in Kazamatsuri. It's like Gaia clearly keeps tabs on them far more effectively than they think. And so it makes you almost wonder, like, they clearly have a good idea of how to like detect superhumans. So they have their own like spy network that watches us, and like while we've got all this to try and establish ourselves, I'm sure that Gaia probably at least noticed a few of them. So it's interesting. It's interesting to think about it from both perspectives, since we've had those perspectives and seeing this approach. And so it's so weird to imagine these two secret organizations battling in the same territory, both trying to like blend in, but both sticking out at the same time. Once Gaia detects the key, we'll have to make a big move. We're holding a war of information so that we can detect it. Information warfare is apparently the field of hunters. That's what Imamiya's grumbling pertains to specifically.
どうして情報戦が狩猟系の領分だ？
痕跡を調べるのは狩猟本能の領分だろ。
同じ系統でも人によって違うけどね。飛び道具が得意な人、追跡が得意な人。
逃げるのが得意なやつとかな。
へえ、知らなかった。
お前、クソ真面目なくせに物知らなすぎ。つうかそれはただのクソ。
That is, I mean, I hate you, but you've got to point it there. It's like, he's so serious, and he's always like, kind of straight-laced, and yet he's so, how did he not learn this? If Imamiya has this information, how did he just never come across it? It's weird. I kind of get it, though. It's not like it's something you can just pick up a book about, but you'd think he'd been asking these questions a long time ago. Very bizarre. That's because I don't have any friends I can easily learn things from like him. From what I've heard, Mikuni is also a hunter type. I've seen Mikuni and his friends fooling around and flipping a wrecked car that was lying on the ground with a single hand. To make the most of his physical strength, primitive weapons are preferable with firearms that have a fixed power. Weapons like axes or spears. Japan, with its strict gun control laws, is perfect for these sorts of weapons. Meanwhile, a weak superhuman like me would probably find it better to use a firearm. Except I'm terrible at it.
あいつが俺の上司になったりすることも。
I definitely would not like that. I need to do my best so that doesn't happen.
そういやお前、どんなことできんの？
Imamiya asks me, as if he just remembered.
止血が早い。
他には？
持久力を向上させたりとか。
マラソン速くてどうすんだよ。
戦闘向きではないわね。
もともと汚染系ってそうなんだ。
体から毒を生み出せる人って聞いたけど。
生物濃縮か。俺にはそういうゲートは無理だ。薬物への耐性はあるけど。
そう。
しょべえな、先生。
It's so crazy to me. Like the power scale, it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, it's like it's still kind of impressive. I mean, if you compare it to some of like these higher ups in the superhumans, obviously it's pretty weak, but it's still impressive.
私たちも大した能力じゃないけどね。
Which is interesting. Nishikujo felt like she was crazy strong. So like, were we always just seeing really weak power users?
そうな。こんなしょぼい任務しかさせてくれねえんだもんな。
The main stage for the key search mission is the expanse of the forest. Just outside the city. We've been stationed just a step away from it.
つまんねえしょ。俺もバトりてえ。
俺たちで戦闘向けの魔物に勝てるかな。
100% 全滅。
逃げりゃ全滅しない。
Okay, sure. So you want to fight, but you also want to. Your plan would be to run away. So seems like you going into this combat situation would be just great. It sounds like you do super well.
ハウンドタイプでもこの3人の誰より早いから無理だな。
わかってるよ、勇者様。
It gets on my nerves. I bet.
その勇者って呼び方。
ああ、言うじゃん。今日は何？強気な日？
喧嘩したら作戦から外されるからね。
She steps in and tells us off. We're all on edge, me and Mia both. It's the stress of being in last place. The guy left us too.
それもわかってるけどさ。ああ、だりー。すべてが。
Suddenly, Mia sits on the ground, seemingly have lost all motivation. We've got a long, long road ahead of us. Ugh. Our assignment is a far worse fight against tedium than I imagined. Today's the Harvest Festival. Naturally, this is where things are going to kick off. In the midst of the festival's hustle and bustle, the operation to search for the key quietly begins. The festivities of the event extend throughout the city. With the streets brimming with people, locals and tourists alike, almost all public transport has come to a standstill. People head towards their planned events. From high up, it would look like a complicated ocean current. There are those who are carried away by the heat of the festival. Meanwhile, some turn their backs and head away from programs that are just about to begin. And there's also a strange group with no real goal, staying in a single place. I haven't really paid them much mind.
したらさ、あいつなんて言ったと思う？
なんて言ったの？
Aww. So she put on her mask. This is her playing the act, which we see. This is almost exclusively how we see her throughout the whole game. So it's kind of fun that this is her stance and her facial expression when she's putting on a front.
待て待て、当ててみるっしょ。ね。
うっそ、それって完全に二股じゃん。
いや、まだそうと決まったわけじゃねえよ。
それは希望捨てなさすぎだろ。
The two young people pass by, exchanging small hand signs that the average person wouldn't even recognize.
おーし、変更なし。配置つくべ。
We head to our designated posts. Fairly few people pass by this area even during the festival. Anyone seen here will definitely stand out. I get so nervous I start moving awkwardly. Our duty is, to put simply, to be lookouts. The area we're in charge in has one of the shortest routes from the city leading into the forest. There are relatively few people who pass by here too. Though small, there's a possibility a summoner will pass by as something happens in the forest. And there is a chance that the key might pass through this route. Monitoring that is our job here. At the same time, we also have to prevent any tourists from wandering into this place. There are several other similar points. One is fairly low priority. This one is fairly low priority. It will probably be uneventful. But Imamiya isn't happy with that. I'm sure he's not. A punk. Time passes. I can hear the festival's music coming from somewhere.
楽しそう。いいよな、パンピーは。
言うほどプロになってないじゃない。
経験値積ませてくれりゃ、いつでもプロになってやるよ。
Just then, a faint sound of a whistle comes from the forest. It's a frequency that you wouldn't be able to hear without superhuman hearing. Someone like me can only just barely hear it.
今の。
緊急シグナルだな。
A signal whistle is used to alert the squads on either side in case of an emergency.
これ隣の班が攻撃されている。
What kind of familiar would be all the way back in this remote area?
おいおい、なんか怒っちゃってますかこれ。
Call it in. It's a report.
警戒しなよバカ。
We're not allowed to come to the aid of another squad just because they get into trouble. Acting on our own like that will cause the operation to collapse. The key search teams have been specifically selected because of their combat capabilities. Because of the nature of the operation, the rules of engagement have been strictly determined. The support team should already be on their way. There's nothing for us to panic over. No need to panic.
おい、西九条、動こうぜ。
普通に命令違反なんだけど。
だから
ダメに決まってんでしょ。
手柄立てたくねえ。
この仕事を責任持って終える方が確実。
Yeah. Even Mia, I guess I can kind of get the heroic feeling, and that's kind of the whole thing with superhumans. But really, frankly, like an operation like this, you have standard protocol, you have a setup. There's a reason why they tried to train you to be like soldiers. It's because you are doing something important, even though it doesn't feel important. It is important. And unless you have to, as long as like if you jump in way too early, you're just dismantling the operation, putting a big hole into a patchwork that's really important and critical to keep like properly linked. And you'd think that by breaking the rules, even if you are successful, that you're somehow going to get like praise for that. Like, what an idiot.
ここで動かなかったら次のし上がるチャンスがいつ来るかわかんねえぞ。
The heck are those two have been talking about?
おい、何考えてる？
おめえには相談してねえ。
Slight jab from him.
西九条、協力しろ。見逃す手はねえよ。
She really wants to too.
空振っても最下層の俺らに失うもんなんてねえだろ。考えろよ。もし鍵を確保できりゃ。
おい、いくらなんでもそりゃむちゃくちゃだぞ。
いいからおめえは黙ってろ。マジでいい。本当にいらない。
What cool teammates. It's actually pretty clear that the two of them have like talked about this in the past, but they specifically cut out Kotarou. I fall silent after being confronted with such a blunt rejection. Looks like it'll be pointless convincing him.
こういうとこで手柄立てねえといつまでも上行けねえぞ。
でも誰か残らないわけには。
そんなの勇者先生が残ってくれんだろ。真面目なお方なんだしよ。
Nishikyujo looks down and sinks into thought. Eventually, she looks up. Her expression is the same as even Mia's.
天王寺はここにいて。
Cool. You guys are great. What cool teammates. My gosh, you both suck. Nishikyujo, I expected better of you.
しっかり見張っとけよてめえ。どうしても納得できねえなら言いつけろ。この件についちゃ恨みはしねえよ。
Mia dashes toward the forest.
悪いけど、あとは任せるから。
Sure. You guys suck.
お前まで行くなんてな。
上に行かなきゃ、ずっと息が詰まったままだから。
Her small body fades into the darkness like a nimble cat. That leaves just me behind. Even after they leave, the conversation continues to weigh on me with a strange pressure. It makes absolute sense. We choose to blaze our own trail, not to constantly wait for things to go our way. But then, what do I do? Oh my gosh, really? That's the choice? I mean, maybe I'm just a passive, like, I would never be a hero, because it'd be like, I want to make sure that the whole network works. It's so important to make sure that like the holes stay plugged, that there's no massive leak or issue. It's like, so dumb. I hate that this is even happening, but it makes sense. I just think it's crazy that this is part of the canon. I probably couldn't be a hero. This is why, because I would actually follow orders. I decided to chase after them. I could either bring them back or join them. My thoughts haven't caught up with my actions yet. I just know I'm doing the right thing. That much I'm sure of. That's crazy that he can be that sure, but that's because he's part of like the canon. That's why my legs are running as hard as they can. I know I'm nothing but a burden right now. And we're definitely not getting off with just a verbal chewing out. All sorts of worries pop into my head. I guess that's the best justification, would be like, squad cohesion might be more important than like maintaining the perimeter. Even though all I know, even though I know all that, I still run towards Imamiya and Nishikyojo. I wonder if this is how the injury occurs, though. I can't catch up with them. Maybe it's our difference in leg strength. I've lost sight of the two ahead of me.
まずいな。
Maybe I should head back to my post for now? Just as I'm about to, I find something the size of a business card glinting in the ground. I pick it up and find that it's an encased name on the card that Akane keeps around her neck. If this was dropped here, then that means this is the event. Did she wander to the forest? At a time like this?
マジかよ。
My priorities have changed completely. I get on all fours and inspect the ground for shoe prints. Found them. They're all around kid size too.
エニシの家って、今はマーテル出身の施設だっけ？やばくないか？
I have a bad feeling about this. The entire thing feels tied to danger. Unless I find her, keep her safe, bring her back to the foster home, this is absolutely going to lead to trouble.
急げ。
Oh, it's leading to trouble for sure, buddy. A bit further ahead, I come across a familiar's tracks. They're from a big one. Not just that, either.
戦闘！
Oh, no. Looks like the familiar's fought with someone. There are traces of blood, too. My near-field communicator is only effective at a line of sight range for a few hundred meters. I try to use it anyway, but the noise is so bad it's unusable for communication. Something's off. It's too quiet. The atmosphere is dense and sticky. The only good thing is that there are no corpses, or so I thought until I find one nearby. Even without checking to confirm, I'm sure that they're dead. The body's lying face first in the ground, and everything except the head is completely crushed. Ooh. As if some absurd force squashed it flat. I notice countless holes as well, bite marks. I can't even bear to look at it. This sort of brutality is something only a familiar could pull off.
こいつ、三国藩だ。
I wonder, the injury, like he assumed it was like from falling from a tree. I wonder if it's from the familiar, and I wonder if it's a familiar Akane is controlling, but he didn't recognize that at the time. It's one of his entourage. Still, his skills are top-notch compared to his peers. I guess no matter how strong you are, when you die, you die.
茜。
Her tiny footsteps that know no fear head deeper into the forest. Some of those footsteps are completely erased by the destruction wrought on their surroundings. It looks like she went into the forest and then the fight began shortly after. I've somehow managed to follow the tracks all the way here, but I can't tell the shoe print apart anymore.
どっちだ？
I see several here. Interesting. Again, a pretend choice. Route A. I move forward. I plow through the still untouched parts of the forest. There are no signs of anyone having passed through here. As for why I picked this path, it's because it's dotted with plain rocks. When I was a kid, I would subconsciously only step on the white parts of the crosswalk. I recalled that memory. If she started jumping only on rocks, then it would be hard to leave any footprints behind. Another 5 minutes of walking later, I come across a large tree that's been felled.
戦闘がここでも。
This tree, something clearly caused it to fall. Even if he could flip a car one-handed, I doubt he'd have the strength to topple a giant tree like this. And if that were a cutter type, they would have used some kind of blade to slice through the tree. The trunk would have been clean cut. The level of destruction I'm seeing would be unthinkable, except for a large familiar. I bet you it's the T-Rex familiar. Isn't that Akane's like special favorite?
破壊しながら西に向かっているのか。
There's another corpse by the tree. It's someone from the recon team. The same team as Mikunu. Mikuni. Good grief. Why have I read his name right like so many times, and then for now my brain just exploded. As one died pretty cleanly, but everything from the chest up has vanished.
食いちぎられたな。
The pungent stench of blood makes me want to vomit. I hold back the urge to take in the situation. The reconnaissance team shouldn't be forced into combat except in an emergency. One possibility that I should consider is that Mikuni's team also wanted to hog the glory and move on their own. The more excellent the superhuman, the greater their ego. They have to have a strong ego, otherwise they're useless. Again, that's got to be the fatal flaw of the superhumans, is that the most effective are also the most headstrong. It can be so difficult to wield them as a weapon, like as a team. The organization itself also seems to have some level of tolerance for ignoring orders. Mikunu's team, wanting to keep the credit to themselves, chased after a huge threat, creating a hole in the entire operation. That's definitely not good.
誰かこのことに気づいているのか
If all communication with the reconnaissance team are cut off, there should be a contingency plan already in action. Even if I want to try and get in contact, I can't get a line of sight necessary for the radio in this dense forest.
そうだ
I knock myself on the temple. I clamber up a tall tree nearby. There should be a warning and control balloon just above us. At this altitude, there shouldn't be anything to impede communication. I might be able to get in touch with the command center through the balloon's medium-range radio.
ここもか
I can't get in touch. Seems like I'm still getting interference here. What happened to Gaia being incapable of a military response?
どうすりゃいいのかわかんね
My lack of experience is coming back to bite me in the butt. Suddenly, I see a bird bursting through the canopy of trees. It's a large bird, a sea eagle, sticking out from its head from the countless coil-like things.
えねじ巻きの生えた鳥
It's approaching fast. My skin tingles as if it's been charged with static electricity. Feels like it's radiating something. The bird is plummeting right in my direction. Oh, it might have intercepted his communication attempt. I intentionally fall downward to grab onto a branch. The giant claw cuts off the branch I'd just been holding onto moments before. I immediately lean forward, thrusting my knife into the base of the bird's wing. There's some resistance. The coiled up bird flaps its wings, trying to fly again, and I jump right on top of it. Of course, I can't support the weight of an entire person. Both the bird and I crash into the ground. To keep it from trying to fly off again, I yank its wings as hard as I can. They slowly rip and tear apart. After tossing aside the torn wings, I stomp down on its head with the full weight of my body. I can feel a crunching sensation against my heel. Either its skull or more coils still. Regardless, the familiar that had been thrashing about slowly turns to dust. After confirming the threat has been dealt with, I immediately break away. Combat is more mentally tiring than it is physically. I've managed to take one down. If I report that in, I should be able to get some credit. Maybe even a promotion.
いやワクワクしてる場合じゃない
Yeah, no, like, you should also consider, like, I know it's a stressful situation, but didn't they go over and drill that, like, a familiar's being controlled means that they're likely sharing senses with the summoner. By killing it, you've essentially announced that you're present, that there's a threat there. You're likely going to be hunted now. I'm worried about Akane. I stop trying to contact command and get to searching on foot. After another 20 or so minutes, I hear something terribly ominous. There's a fight. I move closer to where the sounds are coming from. Before my eyes stands the biggest familiar I've ever seen. There it is!
こんな化け物まで
They even have monsters like this? Yeah, they do. I don't know if I already used you in a thumbnail, but if I haven't, you're getting in the thumbnail this time. My legs are shaking. I don't want to get any closer. Run! My instincts scream at me. We humans stand at the apex of the food chain, but this creature is something we have yet to hunt. Hence, the knowledge of how to hunt this creature isn't stored in our hunting instincts. Its enormous jaws are lined with fangs. I can clearly tell it's responsible for the corpse I just saw earlier. The blood splattered and dripping all over the tree surrounding it dyes the bark a dark red. Before my eyes, the dragon brandishes its tail. It whips perfectly against someone jumping in the air. His body immediately bursts, spraying blood in a circle. Fetch me. Oh my gosh, that is actually terrifying. That's freaking nuts. Look at that thing. It's just too far away for me to reach. What power. If it gets on top of you, it'll be fatal. Even a light blow from its tail will will destroy your body. It's a simple and obvious difference in combat power: weight. Being both huge and agile is the most powerful asset in combat than any superhuman abilities. These are several more corpses strewn about. Maybe 5 or 6? The dragon charges. Its huge jaw stretches open without even a hint of its slowness you would expect from a body that large. Someone jumps backward in a low arc. It's swift motion. I know a guy who can move like that. Holding something giant, he throws it underhanded. The object blends into the night, a solid piece of metal with a bend in the middle. That's Mikuni. He specializes in the boomerang. It's made of metal and weighs almost 10 kilos. No human could possibly survive a direct hit from it. The dragon sways its body, dodging Mikuni's boomerang. However, the lump of metal surges quickly upward, like above the dragon, as if he had anticipated it. It twists in midair and dives in a sudden downward attack, using the pull of gravity as a force multiplier. It's a feat of genius, an attack that cannot miss. The fins all over the boomerang create countless swirls of air as it's thrown. Mikuni has a special sense for perceiving the lift force generated by them. Okay, so he's kind of like the Captain America. Like, Captain America is supposed to be just like a kind of a pumped up human, but his real power is his capability of manipulating like the forces of, I don't know, calculus, because he can throw the shield and have it bounce perfectly off objects and get back to him every time. Mikuni is kind of like boomerang Captain America. In addition to his deep sensory understanding of physics, his extraordinary dexterity and arm strength allow him to pull off these supernatural moves. It's almost inhuman. That is a manifestation of his unique ability. With the fins, there were definitely some decrease in its initial velocity because of air resistance. In exchange, it has unparalleled level of control. As long as it's in the air, it can compensate for the speed that it lacks with the potential energy. For example, with the speed that it gains from falling downward like I just saw. Sensing it would be an attack on the top of the head, the dragon jumps back. Despite being a huge hulking creature, it's as nimble as an impala. Just before the boomerang hits the ground, its flight trajectory changes through the lift of the air and switches to a horizontal glide as if it were hovering. With a gentle motion, the boomerang returns to its owner's feet.
あれが噂の鷹狩りって技か。
He's pretty much doing the same thing as a baseball player when throwing a curveball, except the technique is in an entire league of its own. He pulls the boomerang out of the ground and retreats into the trees. With his ability, it would be better to keep some distance between them. The dragon gives chase. Moving without rustling even a single leaf is impossible, but Mikuni runs as quietly as possible through the woods. He reminds me of a martial arts master. If a familiar is controlled by someone, they must be incredibly skilled.
援護するべきなのか。
Sadly, my abilities have absolutely no punch behind them. I doubt it can keep that familiar pinned down. Weaving a path around the trees, the boomerang flies through the air. The dragon makes a big turn. But the second the boomerang slips past the dragon's head, its trajectory suddenly changes. It turns at a near right angle as if being drawn into the familiar.
気流の乱れに反応させたか。
Interesting. When something as big as that moves, it will change the air currents. You could say it was able to manipulate the boomerang's trajectory by sensing the air currents and reacting accordingly. It should have been a surprise attack on the familiar. Instead, the dragon just tilts its head to the side and stops the incoming boomerang with a single bite. The hulk of steel warps and contorts under the force of its countless fangs. The dragon's entire body twists as it repositions the boomerang in its mouth and then leans backward. Power ripples through the dragon, from the tip of its tail to the top of its head. It flings the boomerang back. Oh my gosh! It's a dino throwing boomerangs! Filled with the power of the likes of the industrial machines possess, the boomerang cuts through and penetrates anything and everything it seems to be an obstacle. It disappears into the night. I hear the sounds of a dull squelching and a scream overlapping from a distance. Silence returns to the forest. The dragon, meanwhile, saunters off without a care. Sheesh, that thing's a monster. That's terrifying. Holy crap. Whew. Have I said this before? But if I were to pick between, like, it sucks because, like, both of them just use their life force, but man, summoners are kind of cool. Like, it feels like they often become the bad guys, but they still are cool. I don't want to go, but I have to. If nothing else, to bear witness to what happened. I head in Mikuni's direction. I find the scene. His corpse doesn't even look like a corpse anymore. The boomerang was turned into a twisted chunk of metal by the dragon's fangs, and it was rotating at high speed. If anyone took a direct hit from that, it would be only natural this would happen, or so I think, as I try to distance myself from what just happened.
こんな強いやつでも あっさりとしたもんだ。
Yeah, I think that should give you perspective. Suddenly, the nausea I'd been suppressing immediately assaults me. I vomit everything out of me. Sooner or later, death will come to anyone who continues to fight. Even a genius. One wrong step and you're dead. Is there anyone who who never makes a single misstep? No, no one like that exists. Hell, I make mistakes all the darn time. Everyone dies. It happens in an instant without even realizing it. Mikuni died. Even Asaka will die. On this battlefield, I'm probably the most likely to die. No. There's also Akane. Someone even weaker than me is here. With that thought alone driving my driving force, I get back on my legs, and even though I'm shaking. Now we go to Route D. I search for Akane aimlessly. I walk, constantly staring down at my feet. I finally find some small shoe prints. The strides are getting longer. I determined that this is where she started running. There's countless reasons for her to be scared to run away. Akane dashed through the forest left and right in utter confusion. Eventually, I find a tall tree that seems to be easy to climb. The shoe prints stop here. Therefore, I look up.
いた。
It's Akane. She's high up in the tree. She picked the tree with a lot of footholds and climbed nearly all the way to the top. Akane's clinging onto the trunk. Even from a distance, it's obvious she's quivering from fear.
降りられなくなってるな。あれ。
She's practically about to slip off. What do I do? Interesting. Call out, throw a pebble? That's dumb. Knock on the trunk, call out to her quietly, shout at her, climb up. Catch her when she falls. I mean, makes sense. Something happens though. Something terrible happens. If Akane's panics, then climbing up will only make her even more scared. I might be dangerous, but this is probably the most reliable way to do it. Even if I'm just a reject, I'm still a superhuman. I can do it.
ただ、どうやって落とそう。
This is the real question here. As I ponder my options, I feel a savage presence quickly closing in from behind me. My body moves before I can think. I roll to the right without even looking. Hot breath barely grazes the back of my neck.
魔物。
Thanks to the momentum of its lunge, the black shadow crashes violently into the tree trunk. The tree shakes wildly. Akane gets thrown off at the top of the tree. Without even making a scream, her small body comes loose from the tree's trunk. I gotta catch her. The familiar shakes its head and it faces me. Oh, it's one of you. Can I even deal with it while catching Akane? So I mentioned before, I say what of you. Ironically, I've been playing Elden Ring with the very few scraps of free time I have that's not dedicated to the YouTube channel. I've been playing Elden Ring. I'm trying to beat it. I want to actually beat the game because I never beat it before. I just got caught up in other stuff. Anyway, I still think that the dog enemies in that game are far more frustrating than even bosses. Like, bosses are tough, but I get that they're tough, and they actually usually aren't too bad. It's usually not too rough to learn the patterns. Just kind of maybe after a few tries, usually I can get around and get to winning, changing up my strategy and all that. Stupid dogs, most of the time, 1-2 hits and they're done. But they move and they leap around in ways that can be difficult to hit. It makes it difficult to hit them. And where you fight like a pack of them, and you might get 4 of them, 5 of them down, no problem. But then the last one, for whatever reason, just gets in your face, rips you to pieces. It sucks. So just seeing this thing, it's making me think of that. Impossible. I'll have to run or I'll die. But if I run, then Akane will die. Either option will lead to a tragedy. My brain is throwing up these crazy errors.
嘘だろ。
The dog creature crouches down, leaps like a spring. Akane slowly falls downward. Everything's happening in slow motion.
効率を。
All superhumans continue to try to improve their efficiency. I'm in the same way as Mikuni bettered his throwing ability to the level of refinement. I should also be able to get my movements to that level of skill. By combining a series of precise actions, I can explore the realm of possibilities. If only I had an even more precise way to measure. In the sea of possibilities, finding the right answer is exceedingly difficult. Even if the chances are extremely low, it's the only path and I'll have no choice but to take it. I accumulate all the small actions and search for the path to success. For just an instant, I strongly desire that. I love that. I was about to say like, is it gonna overwhelm me with all these possibilities, but then there's only one that actually is going to be the path we take? I think that's cool. What a cool depiction here. Pattern M. This should be right. With a foreboding certainty, I switch my consciousness to combat mode. The black dog approaches. I throw myself backward as far as possible. The dog's fangs just barely graze the tip of my nose. While I somersault backward, I grab the dog by its fur, kicking it in the stomach and fling it away with all my might. With my field of vision still spinning, I spot where Akane is mid-fall. With that happening, a claw or perhaps a fang rips deeply into my arm, causing blood to pour out. Well, if I'm bleeding, I might as well make use of it. The dog's familiar rolls over and lunges at me once more. I hold up my blood spear, which I formed in the shape of an icicle. Pressure. It's the pressure of my opponent pressing against me. I thrust the blood spear straight into the dog's open mouth, making use of its momentum. Like Sam with the spider, I break the weapon forged from blood and roll to the side. At the spot right where I stand, I catch Akane just as she falls into my arms.
Yatta!
Akane's unconscious. Like some kind of delayed response, it's only now I'm sweating bullets. I think that I did a darn good job there, seriously. I lay her down against the tree trunk. Even after having a spear thrust into its mouth, the black dog is still struggling violently as it attacks me from behind. I apply a chokehold to it. A bundle of muscles in my arm explodes. This guy's still going at it all the way to the end. I twist my entire upper body sideways. After about a minute of struggling, the dog's neck finally snaps. The familiar goes limp.
Katta.
This is my limit. I collapse flat on my back. The fatigue built up in my arms so intense that it's going numb. Meanwhile, the black dog is now turning into dust.
で、これからどうする?
I'm curious about Imamiya and Nishikujo, but I decide to prioritize evacuating Akane. I lift the little girl up in my arms, but I sense a strange presence. Oh my gosh, she's here. I'm not in danger signal. It's not a danger signal. Still, my heart's pounding like crazy. It's like my body's all tense, but my head can't seem to keep up. Don't get any closer. Don't approach anything suspicious. That's the secret to living longer. With Akane here now, it's best to distance yourself from any needless danger as fast as possible. But I'm captivated. Immensely. You gotta go, boy. You gotta go. It's interesting. We're gonna have a bit of an experiment. I think I'm gonna keep going and just make this a longer episode, but there's whispers going around in the YouTube creator community, you could say. I mentioned this, I think, I might have mentioned this in Friday's episode of Grisaya, but there's rumors that the algorithm shifted in YouTube's end. Like, they tweak it occasionally, but it can have dramatic effects on creators. And unfortunately, this change seems like it might impact me pretty badly, because it seems that YouTube, for whatever reason, might be deprioritizing videos that are longer than an hour. I think this is a reactive response to a kind of like glitch that people discovered. Actually, Spiffing Brit covers it pretty well. Like, I really like how he publishes a lot of like the little like weirdness that he discovers. Most YouTubers keep it to themselves because it can give them an edge. But he often publishes it, which inevitably ends up altering, like YouTube usually will notice because his content goes super big. And they adjust it, and I think they're trying to adjust and compensate, because one of the best ways to get ad revenue right now, or at least it was to make really, really long compilation style videos, like 10, 12-hour kinds, because people often put them on and then run them while they're sleeping, and ads will be playing on it the whole time. And so you can get really, really, really high rates of return for your views on really, really long videos like that. Because, like, as long as it's something that people are putting on and then falling asleep to, the video keeps playing in the background. So it's playing ads, and every time an ad plays, like, there's a payout to the creator who made the video. And so these videos can get this, like, really disproportionately high return on investment, as long as people are, like, finding it agreeable to listen to. So I wonder if the algorithm, because the algorithm kind of would then keep feeding it to you, because you would see that you liked it. And it also, the algorithm pays attention to what you watch and when you watch it. So what it would start doing is it would start recommending you these long videos anytime you're getting ready to sleep, right? So inadvertently, YouTube may have been paying out creators more, like disproportionate to the views that are like interactive. And so I think to combat that, if you're watching a video that's over an hour long, you're likely not going to get as many ads on it anymore. and it might even hurt it in the priority because they want to, like, YouTube probably wants to discourage super long form content that's meant to be a farm for ad revenue. So unfortunately, this might be our first real experiment with this, because I've been keeping most of my videos around an hour, usually a little less, but this one's definitely going to be over an hour. So let's see how it does. If you had trouble seeing this video, like if it didn't pop up in your feed like usual, like usually you might get a notification or something. If it for some reason didn't when it normally did, let me know, because that could be really useful information for me on whether or not this change is real or if it's just a rumor. Anyway, let's go. So I'm going then. This is foolish. Curiosity kills more than just cats, but I just can't fight it against it. Gingerly, I approach the presence one step at a time. I feel a mix of interest as it dances about, as well as a sinking feeling of terror. I push the trees aside, making my way through the shrubbery. The vegetation here is awfully dense. It's almost abnormal how much grass and how many trees are growing here. The bushes are so fresh that I almost feel slimy to the touch. They seem to be raw and filled with life.
あれこれどこかで
He's found the power spot. Something in the back of my memories tugs at me. Before I manage to recall it, my field of vision opens up. A green light shines brightly into my eyes. There she is! Oh my gosh, look at that!
そうだったな
God, that's pretty. That's gorgeous. Hello again. It's been a while. I remember in a flash. The tale of the bamboo cutter. When I was hunting these monsters back then, I touched that bud. The bud has grown and bloomed into a flower. A flower in the shape of a person. Oh yeah! There stands an ethereal girl with a halo of light surrounding her. She's a miracle given form. And also a familiar created by the earth. No, all the familiars are mere imitations. This one is the genuine article.
鍵
What seems to be a halo is actually streams of light gushing forth from behind her. It looks like reminiscent of a geyser. I didn't even know about this phenomena. The membrane that shackles her wrists together dances around like some kind of veil. I can't move. My gaze is drawn to her as if she's sucking away my very soul. It's not that I think she's beautiful or cute, nothing like that at all. It's akin to a primitive faith. Capture the key or dispose of it. Dispose? My head's ringing. Asaka's face flashes in my mind. As a member of Guardian, I have to... This key girl...
排除しなければ
I mean, I'm a hunter, so I... Yeah. Oh, it's interesting. It's actually... I could choose. This is interesting, because up until now, whenever the flames appear, it didn't actually let me choose. But yeah, like... I want to explore this. I'll do it on my own time. But... I can't. Like, I just can't. Like, making a choice here, I can't. I gotta let her go. I can't dispose of her. I mustn't. That much is non-negotiable. She's something that mustn't be sullied by human hands. She's so dazzling, my eyes hurt. In her eyes that remain unblinking, I can't seem to sense any sentience. But that's exactly what makes her look so divine. I realize that intelligence is an impurity. As humans grow older, they acquire more imperfections. Divinity is naivete. I reach out to her. Even though I could die just by touching her, my life could unfurl and be extinguished. But still I reach out, because I know that before my eyes is something truly precious. And then stab! Oh, look at that. There was a major deviation there. I wonder if that would have been those other choices.
事情はよくわかった。
I finished my report while standing at the attention before Asaka, Shimizu, and the others gathered around the table.
三国の遺体は回収されている。報告とも一致するようだ。
いいものは持っていたが、思いのほかだったな。
地流はやはり温存されていたんですな。
外野主義者どももバカではなくなりつつあるようだ。
伝説の守り神様に徘徊されると、来年から辛くなりますな。
戦闘を避ければ問題はないはずだがね。
連中、若ければ若いほど、交戦規定を無視する傾向ですからね。
Yeah.
戦うべきではないと警告すれば群がるみたいな。で、死体の山と。
Alright, intelligence officer. Not sure I'm a fan of you.
笑い事じゃないぞ。俺の責任になりかねん。
仕方なかったとはいえ、実戦経験もないうちから野放しにしましたからね。
収穫祭は仕方ない。いろいろな良し悪しが重なってしまう時期だ。俺だって実戦経験をたっぷり積ませてから前に出してやりたいが、実戦の方がないときた。
海外研修はやってるんでしょ？
志願制なのだよ、あれは。日本人は国を出たがらん。紛争の一つも体験せず、甘さは拭えんというのだが。
Yeah.
いや、江坂さん、そりゃね。今の若い奴らはああいうのに耐えられないですから。
Hey, that's very boomer of you.
俺、もういいですか？
ああ、ご苦労だった。下がってよい。あ、いや、待て。
はい。
貴様が目撃した大型魔物の付近で、不審な点は見受けられなかったかね。
So, did we tell him about Akane? And did we tell him about the key?
どのような？
例えば、やけに魔物の数が多い、魔物使いの姿を見た、植物の異常成長が確認されたなどだ。
Oh, he knows. Here's an interesting thing too. So, I thought that was where he got injured and gets implanted with part of the key within himself. Is that because in those other routes, like what initially triggers the wound was him trying to capture the key? And so that leads to the injury, that leads to Kotori begging for the key to heal him, and the key implant gives him a part of herself to bring him back. But since we didn't do anything, we let her go, we never got that injury. So this route, this world line, this route line, we don't lose our memory. So we never leave Guardian. Okay, so maybe that's what one of the big shifts here is that we never received that injury. That was where the injury happened, was saving Akane. We got a injury in our shoulder, but we never got like mortally wounded. Interesting. Maybe I'm not right there, but that seems to be what it's explaining here.
報告通り、ネジ巻き鳥とハウンドとは接触しましたけど。
それ以外にはないかね。
はい、特には。
そうか。わかった。下がっていい。
失礼します。
ところでネジ巻き鳥なんちゃらって本、昔なかったか？
ありましたね。
I withheld 2 pieces of information from the organization. The first is about Akane, the second about her. Hopefully, the small betrayal of trust doesn't drive a deeper wedge in my heart. Bad news, buddy. So I think, expecting things to go my way.
すんげえ叱られた。
教官に貼られた。ほっぺた。
Yo, you deserve it. When I head to our usual meetup cafe, I find 2 of them down in the dumps. Seems like they got a fitting punishment for having abandoned their post.
そっちは？
殴られた。餌が。
それもきついね。
Yet another lie. I didn't get punched at all. I'm the only one who got off scot-free.
まさか天王寺が2キルだとはな。
そっちは魔物とは遭遇しなかったのか？
偵察用の鳥は見つけて落としたけど、仕損じて逃げられた。
ミクニッチも死んじまうとはな。あんな強くても死んじまうんだな。無情すぎんだろう。
Yeah, or maybe you shouldn't be an idiot next time, keeping in mind he died. Looks like Ivamiya is still reeling in shock.
こちらバジルたっぷりジェノバ風ラザーニア。大盛りにてお待たせいたしました。
来た来た。
Wow, you bounced back quick.
ニヤニヤしちゃうぜ。
Ivamiya eagerly scarfs down his lasagna. What happened to being shocked? I order an unlimited drink option from the menu, grab some iced coffee, and head back to the table.
ねえ、あんたハウンド倒したってマジ？
なんとか。
どうやって？
揉み合いになって首ひねって。
プロレスで
I nod.
裸締め。
You're leaving out the whole blood spear thing, but maybe he's trying to hide that part of his powers.
バトルってよりくびり殺したって感じじゃん。
Hey, it's more than you did.
命がけでそんな余裕あるか。
意外とそれが本質なのかもね。
江坂さんだったら綺麗に片付けると思うけど。
そりゃそうだろう。平均的な超人は犬に勝てるんだってよ。
Nishikujo stares at her hands.
当てることはできるんだけど、それで無力化できないから。
だから手裏剣とか投げろよ。かっちょいいべ。
軽い刃が刺さったくらいじゃ魔物は止められない。まだまだ全然ダメなんだ。
結局鍵って見つかったわけ？
ダメだったって。
祭りが終わったらもう作戦は終わりか。
今動くと目立つから経験者しか動かさないってさ。
そもそも鍵ってのが何かさえ俺ら分かってないけどね。
このままじゃ天王寺がリーダーに変更ってことね。
おう、天王寺っち仲良くすっか。今からでも早速パン買ってきてくれよボス。
Uh-huh.
あのな。
All things said and done, does feel pretty liberating once the operation ends. The two of them look to be quite excited.
試験で赤点取ったって騒いでるやつみてえだな。
Yeah. I guess maybe it's like keep your chin up type attitude, but still, like, that was awful what just happened.
来年も収穫祭が来れば使ってもらえるだろうけど。
Probably.
こんなんで出世できるのかな。
It's interesting because, like, I would like I would wish I could point out to Nishikujo, be like, okay, so you can control blades, right? Like throwing weapons. Maybe instead of fighting the familiars, you should be like learning how to find the summoners. Because that's the thing, is like summoners are human, and like they're more closely related to normal humans. Your blades would be terrifying against a human. And even if they had familiars to protect them, if you could get the drop on them, you might be able to take them out before they could realize, and then boom, you've killed all their familiars at the same time. I would say that's what I would recommend to her. I'd be like, look, you should be a summoner hunter. You should learn how to stay hidden from familiars and evade them, you know, fend them off, but extract as soon as you're fighting a familiar. But finding the summoner, taking them out, you just win.
経験値ためねえと。
天王寺はどうするの？
このチームで動くんじゃないのか
？3人とも素人じゃん。機能しねえよ。今回みたいのは特別だべ。
それぞれ別の土地で仕事することになるんじゃないかな。
俺らが江坂さんたちみてえに経験積みゃ別だろうけどな。ま、当面は研修だろう。俺はそれでいいっす。
Well, I'm glad.
俺はどうするかな。
I just can't see myself earnestly making my way up the ranks in an organization like these two. Heck, I could stay low rank the entire time. Why do I think that?
罪悪感だろ。
It's from a desire to punish myself.
悪い。俺ちょっと用事。
I leave my payment to get up from my seat.
一杯しか飲んでないじゃない。
ドリンクバーの意味がねえ。どこ行くんだよ。反省会だぞ一応。
修行。
かっこええ。さすが勇者は言っちゃダメなんだっけか。さすがブレイバー。
お前英語できなさそうだな。
After I bid goodbye to the two of them, I head for the forest. Is he gonna go find her again? There's a place where rocks and trees clump together, forming a natural secret hideout. I used that place pretty often as a kid. It was the secret base of the Earth Rescue Hunter. I sneak a peek inside.
さすがにいないか。
There isn't even a trace of the key that I'd hidden there. I don't find it unfortunate at all. I can't do anything about her. Actually, I'm glad she just disappeared on her own.
ならどうして助けたんだ。
I don't have a clear reason. Just, it's like I had to. It's what I thought. My body moved as if the impulse was imprinted into my very genes. It was. To take action with conviction. It's not often I can do that, so I don't regret it. She's not here, but I'm still curious as to why I was so convinced to help her. What? Did I do it without question because she looked like a girl? Was I really someone as heroic as that? In the first place, the key couldn't understand what I said, and it didn't look like she had a will of her own. She was as powerless as a newborn fawn. I can't imagine someone as weak and powerless as her to be the legendary familiar prophesied to bring ruin to the earth. Or so I tried to convince myself, at least for now.
いなくなったのならもう会うこともないだろう。
I brought Akane back to the orphanage, too. There was no proof that I disobeyed orders either. All that's left is to devote myself to working within the organization.
銃の扱いを知りたい。
Alright. I think we're gonna end here. It's not the most clean cut, but I really wanted to at least like kind of get some closure to what happened. So we're gonna call it quits here for now. So yeah, I'm guessing, like remember this is all just theory, but I really feel like that was the point where maybe what happens is like he's previously injured and he saw the key and he listened to his training and tried to grab her, and it set off the danger sense, and the ribbons came out and just like split him in twain. But Kotori happens to be close by, maybe because she was trying to protect the key. She sees that and she freaks out and demands the key save him because it hurt him, and it actually listens, and that brings him back, fractures his memories, makes him stop aging, makes the weirdness happen that we experience in the game, and that kind of kicks off all the other routes that we saw. But because we didn't do that, we instead protected her, we don't get injured like that. We maintain our mental faculties, and we're gonna keep growing up. So maybe that's part of like the sadness, is that like we're going to be essentially a decade older than all the people that we loved and cared for, all of our friends. And so we're going to be walking a lonely path that keeps us like moving forward on the direction we need to save humanity. And that's why we go over to war. Maybe that's what this handling a gun thing is going to evolve into, is like we're going to receive training. And part of that training, remember they talked about traveling overseas to get experience? Maybe that's what we do, is we sign up for overseas experience, and that experience is to become part of a combat team that operates in the field of war, in the theater of war, to learn how to fight, how to kill, how to like work as a coordinated team members. That must be what happens. So that sequence in the entrance where we started out being at war, it's about us, instead of spending like the next 10 years trying to like not die and going back to school, and instead it's focused on us learning how to honing our combat and capabilities and mental faculties, all the while keeping the secret in our heart that we want to protect the key at all costs, even if it goes against everything Guardian stands for. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so I think that's where it's going to head from here. I think we're going off to war to learn how to handle a gun and learn how to prepare ourselves and become better as a member of Guardian, without having the super accelerator, without having part of the key within our bodies. Oh, that's really interesting. Again, this is all speculation at this point, but I got it. It's on my mind. I got to spitfire it for you. Anyway, that's enough of that. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining me, especially for a very long episode. We don't do these very often because I feel like it can get tedious to wait through, but there wasn't really any good point for us to stop in there without really just grinding stuff down to a halt. So we're going to stop here for now. I hope you enjoyed. Again, it'd be really good to get some input. Like, did this pop up in your feed like usual, or did it seem muffled, or did you have to like look for it to find it, just, you know, knowing it was part of the regular schedule? I'll obviously be looking at the analytics of it as well, but it would be really nice to hear your input as a viewer, because I can't see things from your perspective, because even I have a separate channel that I use to just like watch YouTube on my own. I don't watch YouTube with this account because it would be like, I like building my own playlists of like references and things, and it would be silly to have that in this channel too. So I technically have two, but like the one's my private one, but I don't even see on my private one how this one operates from the user's perspective. So like, I'd love to know your thoughts on the matter. Other than that, thank you so much. If you're part of the wonderful members of the Patreon or the YouTube memberships, I have Patreon that just came out this past weekend. So if you haven't seen that yet, highly recommend you do. Just be lovely to hear from you there. And it's also just nice to be able to share some of like the behind the scenes stuff with you. Otherwise, I hope you're excited as we continue along this path. And I don't know how much longer we can expect this game to go, but I feel like we still got plenty of time and story to explore. So I don't anticipate us ending this one anytime soon. And I'm really enjoying myself with it. It's a good series, really good series. I also kind of am glad that I didn't show the Shizuru and Akane routes Like, they're great routes, don't get me wrong. But we'd be 200 episodes deep into this thing if I had played through those as well. It's amazing, but it's like, oh my gosh, so much content. I can't imagine how you even write this. It's very impressive. But anyway, thank you so much. And until next video, watching me or see you next. I'll see you there.